so excited. Welcome to our virtual clarinet event for MMI. Today we are, our guests are members from the Conn Selmer and Selmer Paris clarinet manufacturing, and we are so excited to have you guys here today. So thank you so much. I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves. So Scott, let's start with you.
Great. I'm Dr. Scott Campbell. I'm the Senior Woodwind Category Manager at Conn Selmer. So within Conn Selmer, I oversee, clarinets, of course, flutes, oboes, bassoons, and saxophones in terms of marketing, working with operations, manufacturing, quality, customer service. We have departments for all those different areas within the company, but anything that has to do with woodwinds, I kind of work with those teams to manage that.
Great. And then Stefan, let's go to you.
Hi, thank you for having us today. So my name is Stéphane Gentil. I'm a clarinet product manager for Selmer Paris, and I oversee obviously the clarinet from the design of the instrument to the marketing and artist relations as well.
Excellent. So welcome all the way from Paris. And then Julian.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Julian Bliss, and I am Market Development Manager at Conn Selmer. So that encompasses all of the clarinets we do, which Selmer Paris, Leblanc, and Selmer USA. A lot of my role is firstly in development of instruments, but also then through the marketing and getting out there on the road and supporting our district managers to get these instruments in as many people's hands as we possibly can.
Excellent. And yeah, so for some of our local MMI customers, you guys will remember Julian came and visited us last year, right before the pandemic and all the craziness started. So it's good to see you, if not virtually, but thanks again. All right. So thanks for being here, and we will dive right into our first question.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. To start, as clarinetists and people just wanting to know about the different models or picking out a clarinet for themselves, board design usually is something that can come up. And so I thought we would start talking about that with a few different specific models. So in that vein, the term polycylindrical comes up all the time, and I think most people, most clarinetists know what that means, but if for anyone who doesn't, kind of how you would explain that, any of you could answer this. And then also going into the barrels, the reverse taper, that's another kind of term that people aren't always sure what that means and what effect that has. And then the last thing, kind of talking about the models, the Prologue and the Présence and the Privilege, we can kind of go into those details with each of those models. And so whoever wants to start tackling that.
I'll jump in first for a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of different terminology that is used to describe board design, and sometimes people come up with new names to describe fundamentally the same thing. Some of that, dare I say, skeptically, can be from the marketing side of things, but fundamentally, the clarinet is a cylindrical design. As many of us will know, different to a lot of the other, I believe clarinet and flute are the cylindrical members of the family, and then saxophone is, of course, completely different with a conical design. Quite simply, polycylindrical means multi-cylinders. And so instead of it just being the same dimensions all the way from top to bottom, it does change. People ask, well, okay, well, why does it change? Why do we need to have varying dimensions and also then with the tone holes? And it's if you had a clarinet that was purely cylindrical and you played it, yeah, the sound might be okay, but fundamentally the tuning, the stuffiness in some notes, you wouldn't want to play it fundamentally. It would be kind of all over the place. So what we do is, by using these cylinders, polycylindrical, is make adjustments to that cylinder to optimize various notes voicing. Imagine essentially, we're dealing with sound waves here, and every sound wave has peaks and troughs and their own frequency. So it's about optimizing the inside of the instrument, the dimensions within that to suit those frequencies the best. And so that's essentially, and there's a lot of different concepts that people use to get a certain playing characteristic out of the instrument. Some people then talk about larger bores versus smaller bores. And I don't know, we don't see so many real, true large bore clarinets so much anymore. We used to see them, but what tends to happen sometimes is you can get a kind of a more wild sound, and then the 12ths also are just, they get a little bit wide, and it's a little bit harder to control. So it seems to be over the years that we've kind of converged on a, I wouldn't say an exact measurement because it still varies, but a kind of more general approach, it seems. But yes, any small adjustment to that bore will really make quite a big difference. But it's just about optimizing that internal, the internal dimensions to get the sound, the tuning, and the feel and resistance that we want. Somebody else can carry on from there.
Yeah, let me just comment on the term you mentioned, polycylindrical. I think that unless if you consider a cone being a specific cylinder, the term polycylindrical is not quite appropriate, because if you look at a clarinet, you basically will have the same pattern for all the clarinets, which means that on the top of the upper joint, from the top here, you go narrower, so you have a first cone, and then about in this area of the instrument, then the bore becomes cylindrical, right down to make things simple to the, not the middle, but nearly the middle of the lower joint. And then you start another cone which goes towards the flare of the bell. So that's kind of the general pattern. So it's a mix of cylinders and cone, really, not only different cylinders within the bore.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what's interesting, sorry, Scott, just a word on the barrel, because obviously the barrel will be the intermediary piece between the musician and his mouthpiece and the instrument. So we design what we believe is the best barrel, which gives the more interesting bass for the instrument. And then the taper, most of the shape of the barrel has a taper shape, which goes in this direction, like this. And then you go in the bore of the clarinet. That's for the general thing. And then, as Julian was saying, what is crazy is you can amend all those features, the diameter of the cylinder, the angle of the cone, where it starts, where it stops, etc. And then you can make you can find the identity of the instrument you design. So let's start with the privilege, because we started working and designing this instrument in this new generation of clarinet. We designed the privilege first.
Okay.
You can then give us your comments as clarinet players when you first had the privilege in your hands, and you share with us what your thoughts were. When we designed this instrument, we wanted to make the best tool for the clarinetist today. Making a clarinet and any instrument is an alchemy. It's very special because we know the instrument. We're not reinventing the instrument. We try to work with the players who are the most representative of music playing at the time we make the instrument. That's why it's important, I think, to keep an eye on your range of instruments and make sure you move along with the requests of the players today. Either we speak of those who are plainly in the classical field, those who will be more in the contemporary side, those will be more on the jazz side, any type of music, really. But when I mention contemporary, for example, we know that over the years, manufacturers had to improve reliability of the key mechanism, for example, because new composers, they want to do stuff that has not been done before. So they go in ways where also technique is getting more and more precise and more demanding for players. So that's an example. So when we designed the instrument, we were looking at something we cherish is the homogeneity of the horn. When we talk about homogeneity, we talk about how the different registers, you can play the different registers and you keep the sound in the same quality. Also, whether if you play piano or fortissimo, you have the same quality of sound. So that was the work we did on the privilege. We managed that through the different elements we mentioned before, the bore at different places. And what's interesting is the shape of the taper for the barrel is actually the opposite. It's not the general, the regular, the most common shape. It's actually the reverse shape this way. And we found that doing this on this particular clarinet with the particular bore it has gives a great homogeneity in the instrument. So the first comment we have when musician tries the privilege is first, wow, this is very homogeneous, right from the bottom to the top. Then the key work has been worked on. We redesigned some keys to make them more comfortable. One interesting thing you cannot notice when you just do a quick trial, but we can tell you when you are in the concert situation, the pitch of the instrument stays pretty stable. You don't need to make too many adjustments. It's one thing that is special about this instrument and not usual on every clarinet. And the design, so we wanted something very sober, so we had two colors, the black of the wood and the silver of the keys, and that's the only two colors you can have. We wanted to come up with even some players think sometimes that there's no ring on the bell, but there is a ring, but it's just that it's black. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's how I would introduce the privilege.
Yeah, some of those things that you mentioned are exactly what Amelia and I have discussed, about Selmer in general, especially with the privilege. So we do a lot of hand selecting of instruments. We've been to Indiana at the factory there and done some hand selecting, and those are definitely things that really stand out, I would say, as a player. That's exactly what we do as, we're hand selecting. We're playing a scale that is a loud dynamic and then soft dynamic, right? And we're looking for that. And I would say definitely that is something that really stands out. You don't have to work very hard to be able to do that. And it really, especially because Amelia and I, full disclosure, we both play buffet and we have for a long time. And so, as players, you're used to compensating, right? And so when you play Selmer and we were, starting the selection process, that's exactly what we noticed right away. It's like, oh, okay, we can just play the instruments. And, the feel of the keys is definitely the other thing that really stands out. It's very ergonomic. It feels like they're in the right place. I have very small hands. Amelia's petite, so she does too. And so, but it can go both ways, right? If you do have longer fingers, it still has some flexibility that way. So for me, that is really what stands out. And that's kind of along all of the models, but privilege in general, and we'll get into a little bit, maybe if you're able to discuss kind of really what makes a difference between not just board design, but maybe some other, concepts of really what makes the difference between those models. But Amelia, do you have any other things that you notice as a player?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, I guess this sound really holds all the way up into the altissimo, which is really nice without having to work extra hard. And kind of like what you were saying, Tori, when we play our buffets, we're kind of used to adjusting for certain notes and things. But playing Selmer, it's like we physically adjust because we're so used to doing that. But then, we look at the tuner kind of going, either left or right, and then we just, hold our one embouchure, and it just works for pretty much across the board with the 3 registers, and that's really refreshing. And then I actually had a question. I don't know. I think for the privilege, are there the metal like tenon sockets? Is that the privilege has that, right? And I'm just kind of wondering.
Correct.
When
Yeah.
was that part of the original design, or was that added later? And also,
Yes.
what purpose that serves?
No, that's part of the original design, which is important because many clarinets don't have the metal female and male socket. Some has only the male socket, but not the female socket. So you can always put your upper joint with your lower joint in any case. It's been designed with the instrument. It's been designed by an engineer in the factory because there were problems putting the joints together, depending on the weather, depending on how we travel, etc. So they went, okay, let's do something that will solve the problem, and that definitely solved this problem.
And let's go ahead and move to the Présence, and then because
this is the Présence.
Like, as Tori and Amelia were talking about in terms of the intonation, we can talk a little bit about what was done to make it so in tune. At the beginning of this conversation, we talked about the board design and how that gives that characteristic tone, which is so important. But what we don't talk a lot about, actually, as clarinetists, we do talk a lot about it, but are the tone holes, right? I mean, because it's really not a cylindrical bore in and of itself, because it's full of tone holes, right? And so a sound wave doesn't really know that it's in a cylindrical shape. It mainly knows that it's in a volume. Okay, so that's how it's reacting is mainly to the volume of the space that it takes up. And of course, by having your tone hole heights, your tone hole diameters, your undercutting, all those things go into play in terms of the volume, which is really what the bore does. We talk about cylindrical and stuff, which is important, but it's the volume and where that volume takes place at. So, with the Selmer Paris clarinets, and I'll let you talk about this, Stefan, for example, like the G sharp, C sharp key, the raised tone hole there in order to make those pitch adjustments. But overall, it's very well designed for that intonation.
Yeah, and something which is relevant for both the privilege and the Présence that I'm now holding in my hand is which has a direct impact on intonation, and it took us some time to develop this bell. The length of the bell, I don't know if you noticed, but it's longer than regular clarinet.
Yes.
I don't know if you were mentioning it, the intonation of the low notes, which are the typical nightmare of the clarinetist, is not so bad on this clarinet. Well, that was a choice we made to have the fundamentals not as low as usual, and to manage to avoid the correction key. The shape of the bell makes a big part. So it's also the end of the instrument, and it plays a big part in this area. So yeah, well, I'm thinking also that we see some musicians changing and trying different belts, which is fine. Everybody is free to do what they want to do. And the appeal is when you change something, it sounds different. Yeah. So maybe you notice something different for sure, but check all the parameters of that you need to have a good instrument and play well. And it took some time to find a good balance between all the elements in a clarinet. So I just wanted to mention that. And then the tone holes for sure is once we found with the work on the bore, the sound signature of the model, then the work is done on each tone hole to see if we need to do to see what shape we have to do, if we need some undercutting underneath to make it homogeneous in the sound. So there's a lot of work going on then on each tone hole, and on some models we can have the tooling to make each tone hole can be different. It depends on the results we get once we are happy with the generic feature of the bore and how the clarinet sounds. For the Présence, we worked based on the privilege. So there's some similarities, like the dimension of the cylindrical part of the bore is similar to the privilege, but we wanted to do an easier blowing instrument. So the top of the instrument, the bores will be different. And for example, for the barrel, that's where you find your reverse taper barrel, the Présence as a reverse taper barrel. So it is an easier blowing instrument, maybe a little bit more direct when you play the Présence. It is priced also in a different category. It's a professional instrument, but it's under the privilege. And there's some features that, for example, you need to know if you want to try the Présence. It doesn't come with the E flat key, for example, as a standard. You can order Présence with the E flat key on. That's no problem. But you can, as a standard, it doesn't come with the little sister of the privilege, if you want, easier blowing instrument. And then, as a result, you can get also different colors in the sound. Then when we talk about sound, it's always a difficult thing because of the word we use. And at the end of the day, we don't, as a manufacturer, we don't make the sound. The musician makes the sound. So when someone will try a new instrument with the mouthpiece, they know they will evaluate the instrument, find it interesting, and maybe a few months after they realize that maybe another mouthpiece they'll get a better balance with the instrument, something they couldn't evaluate when they were changing, because when you try instrument, obviously you need to have your reference as a point, which is the mouthpiece. So then it becomes interesting to see what kind of color you are looking when you perform, what you want to say with your instrument, and then the rest of the equipment can make a balance. But being an easy instrument, you can generally get a tone a little bit clearer, not as dark as a privilege, for example, in most cases. And if we want to go into further detail, yeah.
Real quick, I'm going to pop in here, and sometimes that's preferred by many players. You know, having that slightly brighter sound that occurs from having less resistance. You know, Stefan referred to this clarinet as the little sister of the privilege, and that is the case. But in many cases, and we have some amazing artists that play on this, this is the preferred sister of the line of Selmer Paris instruments, and this is the instrument that they prefer, and they're extremely high caliber players. And Stefan, you can name some of the artists as well, but Kim Koloevno, Michael Rusnik. There's several people that play on the Présence. And prefer that. Of course, we have some incredible players that play on the privilege. And it's funny because some of the artists that play on the Présence, they'll be in we'll go have dinner and stuff with artists, and the other artists are playing privilege, and they're like, oh, I should probably check out the privilege and play it again. And they go play it and they say, no, the Présence is my horn. That's my sound. You know? And that's just the way it is. It's not always that the more expensive instrument is the one that's for you.
Yeah,
That's
and
a good point.
When we design.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, just one last thing. I wanted to mention that when we designed the Présence, we wanted also to position it in a place where it could be the best quality for money for a professional clarinet on the market.
Yeah, and one thing that we usually get, because of course, what's nice about our shop is that we do have a lot of different models for people to be able to choose from, and different makes and models. But one thing we do get, if there's somebody that's really wanting to try Selmer because they've heard all these really great things about the intonation, not having to work so hard, and kind of this even idea, I will say that when they do play a Présence, it's that freeness that they're not used to. And like you were mentioning, most people, at least clarinet players that we encounter, they're not wanting to change anything about their setup usually. They just want to play exactly what they've always been playing, right? So one question we do always get is, does Selmer or is Selmer going to possibly have any other barrel options? Because they're used to that with buffet and, so different tapers and different, is that something that's, okay, all right. Is that in the works or is that already out?
Out. It is out and available.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you about it, like how we came up with two more options for barrels for Présence and Privilege. We are here in the showroom in Paris. That's our showroom. We have the workshop right here, and the good thing is with the design of this new generation of clarinets, many clarinetists came to Selmer to try. A lot of them change and it keeps happening, so we are very pleased with that. And in some cases, we had comments, as I was saying earlier, the barrel being really the interface between the musician and his mouthpiece with the rest of the clarinet. In some cases, we had professionals coming in and say, oh, that's very interesting. I like the instrument, the homogeneity sound. I just feel that I would need a little bit more focus in the sound.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try something. We turn the barrel, try this. How do you like it? Good, okay. You're set. And then we did this several times. On the other side, some musicians were commenting about the need of having more space within the instrument. So we did another barrel with a slightly larger bore. So that's how those two new barrels options came in the family. The one which will give you a more focused, centered sound is called the centered tone barrel. Nothing to do with the centered tone clarinet that we designed in the 50s, but the sound, the name describes perfectly what it does. And the barrel, which is a little bit wider, is called Evolutone. It was first called Evolution, but we have designed a new, we came up with a new concept to prevent cracks on the instrument called Evolution. So we changed the name of the barrel to Evolutone, and that gives you a slightly wider feeling when you play either your Privilege or your Présence clarinet.
And those are interchangeable, right? So either one of those could be used on the other.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Great.
Correct.
We'll definitely have to
and you can get them. Yeah, and you can get them in 64.5, 65.5, and 66.5 as the three regular lengths.
Okay.
And then we can customize length if necessary.
Great. That's good to know. That'll be really helpful, actually. Good. Hey, Julian, I was wondering, what are you playing on these days?
So at the moment, the brand that we Conn Selmer own is Leblanc, which is one of the oldest woodwind. I think maybe is the oldest woodwind manufacturer in existence. Goes all the way back to 1750. And so I've played Leblanc clarinets for the last, long time. Probably, it's well over 15 years at this point. And I remember the first time I tried one, I think Leblanc's always been known for being a very pure sound, very even throughout registers as well. And every note almost feeling very similar to the one before and the one after, which can be quite difficult to achieve on the clarinet. Inherently, of course, there will be some notes that maybe are slightly fuzzier than the one before, or some notes that stick out more than others, and you end up sometimes with a slightly uneven scale. And so in a very well designed clarinet, those things can be evened out as much as humanly possible. And yeah, tone hole placement. But there is the other side that we have to, sorry, I digress a little bit, but
it's okay.
We have to on our end, in the design side, we have to pay attention to, which is the perception within the market. There are places for certain tone holes where if we were to put a key in that place, I don't know if the market would necessarily accept it because it looks a little bit different. And sometimes the clarinet world, sometimes clarinet players, I don't want to say, well, I'm going to say, sometimes we can be a little bit on the conservative side of things, and we like things to be how they are and things to stay. We don't want any crazy new things. Actually, I will say though that things are starting to change in that regard. So
Yes.
which is nice, good to see. Anyway, yeah. So back to Leblanc. I played those clarinets for a number of years and been involved in the development of those for since my start with Conn Selmer, which is now a very very long time ago. And yeah, I love the sound. I love the fluidity. The instrument I have is a kind of, it's based on the Concerto 2 Opus 2 platform, which is a very well known and seemed very well respected platform of instruments. So yeah, it's based on that, but then has some quite a lot of customization, key work, and changing placements of keys and all sorts of other stuff. So yeah, that's the instrument I've been playing for a while.
So kind of going on that, if we can go to kind of the intermediate model, which is next. So that kind of falls into what we sell the most on the Leblanc side is obviously the Serenade. And then for us, the Prologue on the Selmer Paris side. So I don't know if Julian, you want to start first, or if we should start with Prologue. I don't know what's best with design.
So the really great thing with Leblanc is, with such a huge amount of history, we have a wealth of information, not only in terms of historic designs. I mean, this stretching back a long way, but also a lot of first-hand knowledge, actually, from people that maybe have worked there, or there's documents, and so there's a huge wealth. And even recently we were in touch with people that used to work for Leblanc in the USA. So with that, it allows us a lot of scope to investigate some of these previous models and try and understand what it was that people really loved about them. A number of years ago, we had some different intermediate instruments under different names: Noblet, Normandy, and more recently then we made the Bliss clarinet together. So the easiest way, and a Sonata as well, the Sonata was a great clarinet. I think the easiest way that I like to describe the Serenade is we looked at the pros and cons of all of those particular instruments in that category, and then tried to identify exactly what did what, if that makes sense, and then try to take all of the best bits and put them together. So it has a lot of that of the DNA of those old Leblancs, and even into the 2000s. The way it plays is very, feels like home for a lot of people, but then taking it to the next level and trying to advance things in many different ways. One of the biggest advancements we've made is in terms of wood production. Now, the wood on the instrument, as everybody will know, playing a wooden clarinet, that cracking and expansion and contractions are the two things that we have to really pay attention to. And as Stefan mentioned earlier, part of the reason that some clarinets have the tenon caps is to help with that expansion and contraction. Inherently, when you're dealing with a natural product, it will be susceptible to temperature and humidity. And as you're playing, you're subjecting it to a huge amount of moist, humid air going down the instrument, and then to the outside can be quite different. And so that sometimes, if that's too sudden, that can cause that expansion and contraction, and can also cause cracking. Majority of the larger companies that make clarinets have a different way of dealing with this and trying to stabilize the wood, and how they look after it from even before it arrives in our facility. The people that we purchase our wood from have to be firstly sustainable, but also very trustworthy sources. And then it's once we receive the wood, what we do to it that really has the impact. And this is where the secret blend of herbs and spices comes into it. We don't want to give too much away. No. And the really exciting thing is, in the last year, and in some ways, if we choose to take any positives out of COVID, it's that it's allowed us to have time to focus on a lot of product development. And so, especially looking at our wood production, and we've developed some really unique processes that we believe no one else is actually doing. But it kind of goes on to the same, onto a similar thing that there is with the Selmer Paris evolution clarinets, and trying to curb the issue of cracking, especially, but maintaining that fundamental wood clarinet sound. And it's a fantastic thing that they've managed to do with the evolution clarinets. So anyway, very quickly on the Serenade, there is the Serenade 2 is going to be coming out pretty soon. Actually, I think mid-May is when the official launch date for that is, and hopefully there'll be stuff all over the internet everywhere about it. So really excited. And it's credit to, what I will say, and it goes for the same in Selmer Paris, is a lot of people we never see the people that work in the factories and that put in the endless hours of hard work and dedication. Everyone through the wood processing, through to key manufacturing, through to assembly, through to then the engineers and production. It's kind of this whole chain. There's a vast amount of people that go into making your one clarinet, and we're really lucky to have those great people that put their everything into it, so that those instruments do go out the door the highest quality and consistency.
Right.
So yeah, it's thanks to all those people within the factories that we can do what we do at the end.
Well, that's exciting. That's exciting to hear. That was one of my questions is, the original Leblanc Serenade, what kind of, because I know that when you were here last, we were kind of discussing how there's some changes that you were kind of working on. So that's exciting to hear that this is coming up really soon. So I can't wait to try that out.
And to work with a team of people, and to have an idea, or to take an instrument and through its process have, here's the thing, once we've designed a clarinet, it's never just done and that's it. There's always new ways of doing the same thing, or small little updates or changes, and we always want to be very perceptive to what we hear from the players. And so we actively look for feedback on all of our instruments, old and new, and implement any changes or any updates that need to be done. So it's a constantly evolving process, and there's a lot of updates to this one so far.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on a couple of things that we can maybe tie in together. So I do want to talk about the Prologue and what kind of the design concept was for that one. But maybe you can also kind of lead us into we get this question a lot, and that's all about cracking. People are very concerned about that, and there's all these rumors in the clarinet world about wood quality and aging, and I know we can't get into details, but is there a little bit of a difference? Obviously, cutting cost is something that's going to change, with the different levels. Are you able to touch on a bit, maybe between the Prologue, the Présence, and the Privilege, a little bit about that aging process or the wood?
I can share some information with you, not all the pieces of information, but some pieces. Just before, we have a little surprise visit here. So I just like to have Mariam Adam coming and say hello. This is Mariam, Emmanuel Quintet. Of course, Mariam now lives between France and USA, and she was just visiting us today. How are you, Mariam?
Very good. Very good. Nice to see you guys.
Great to see you.
And we can mention that you will be able to listen to Mariam concert at the ICA, because you're going to perform during one of the evening concerts. Do you have the date already, Mariam?
No, it's one of the 4 weekends.
We will send information on the network, but she will be performing a beautiful Privilege at this occasion. Thank you for coming, Mariam.
Thank you.
So word about the wood, and then we can explain a little bit more about the Prologue. We age the wood naturally in Selmer for 2.5 years to 3 years when we receive the wood. Years ago, we have some fantastic photos where we received I don't know how you say it in English, but it's just like the full tree
The log.
delivered the log, thank you, in the courtyard of the factory. It's incredible. So we will have to share some of these photos with you. It's amazing. Then we moved on to buying some rectangular pieces of wood. At the beginning, most of the importers were aging the wood themselves, but at some point they stopped doing it because it's too expensive. So now we're doing it. And for Europe, we have 2 to 3 main importers that we all use as woodwind manufacturer. We talk about oboes or clarinets. And we use the same process for those 3 instruments because we work on wood and we use the same natural aging process on each of these instruments. So I can tell you a little bit more about the Prologue now. As a step-up clarinet, I first started explaining about the Privilege and the Présence, and now the Prologue, and that's actually the plan we had in mind when we started designing the Privilege, to then develop a Présence and a Prologue to kind of trace the journey towards a higher standard of clarinet, and you can start with the Prologue. Again, try the Prologue. It's very interesting instrument in terms of homogeneity. You will find that we have the same board design, the cylindrical board design in the middle of the instrument as Présence and Privilege. So it's really part of the same family. But being a step up, we want it to be more accessible in terms of playing. So the instrument is the more direct that we have in the range, and that's again due to the physical shape of the taper and the upper joint of the instrument. So for the Prologue, the shape of the barrel is purely cylindrical. So you're in direct contact with the instrument, and it's the easiest in the range because it's a setup. And then when you develop further your playability, your technique, you can move to slightly more demanding clarinet, and then you can access to kind of different quality of sound. So there's many things to say about the Prologue. Quality of intonation also is great on this instrument. Homogeneity, the ease of playing. The ergonomy will be very close to the Présence. When you play a Prologue and you want to improve to a Présence or a Privilege, you will feel at home. So that's a big plus of. I'm thinking some professors are watching. That's a good way to build your way up. You won't have to adapt too much to the key work of the Présence and Privilege. The instrument comes with I would say a true mouthpiece, because we didn't talk about mouthpieces. So the good thing is when you play the Prologue with the focus mouthpieces, focus from Selmer Paris, it enhances even more the homogeneity and the alignment of the registers of the instrument. So that's a very interesting thing, because not every clarinet on the market comes with a serious mouthpiece. And you were mentioning the tradition, but we also want to have a little bit of fun with clarinet. So recently we have done something special on the bell of the clarinet. Now every Prologue clarinet comes with some different rings for the bell. So you're going to say, hang on, what is it those rings about? When you get a Prologue before, it comes with a black ring like this, and now you get in the box a bag with 5 other rings. So that makes things a little bit more fun. And I can tell you that clarinetists for all ages like that, because I don't know, if you feel like wearing blue and matching your clarinet, you can wear this. it's not like very crazy, but in the clarinet world, it is kind of very crazy,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, people go crazy with, different color
And
swabs.
you can have pink, you can have this gold yellow, and there's another one looking like silver as well.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a very nice, neat instrument. One of the difference being also step up, you have the ring where you can hook your cord if you need to, and you don't have again the E flat key on the left pinky, but you can have also Prologue with the E flat key, same system as the Présence. The tenons are not as sophisticated. You have a female wood, and the male is just the ring. You have just a metal ring here, so it makes it still make it good. And yeah, I really encourage you to try those 3 models of instruments.
Excellent.
I'd like to just hop in here really quick to speak both about the Prologue and the Serenade. They're both just absolutely incredible step-up clarinets. There are clarinetists in the world, professional clarinetists that play on both of those models that they choose to play on them. Again, they're a bit more free-blowing, and people like that. They like the sound that they get from them. I mean, with the Serenade, Julian's played countless concerts with that. And, one thing that really stuck out to me with the Prologue is when I was hanging out with Radovan Kavalin, and he was utilized a lot, in terms of product development. He has a very close and has had a very close relationship with Selmer Paris for many, many years, and he was part of the Privilege and the Présence, and well, he and some others, was it Philippe Béraud, I think was the other fellow that was in the room at the same time. Yeah. And maybe some others. Anyway, they're play testers, and Jerome came out with a new prototype that he wanted them to play. They said, okay, and they played on it for a while, and they said, yeah, it's fine. It's a good clarinet. It doesn't stand out necessarily, but it's a great clarinet, and they were all assuming that it was another professional level clarinet. And when they were told, no, this would be our I mean, granted, it's a higher level step up, but our step up clarinet, their jaws dropped, because of how well it played. It played at a professional quality for sure. So it's really an outstanding clarinet. And for those who double, it's a really affordable and reliable instrument, as is the Serenade. So I feel really, really lucky to help with the marketing of these instruments, because there really are no better step-up clarinets on the market at all. It's kind of they're incredible. So.
Yeah, I was able to, I think, play them the most at, I think it must have been 2 years ago now at the TMEA. I was able to actually hear and listen, because we had not had them in the store yet. But our rep at the time, was really raving about this new model at the time. And so I really, everything you just spoke about, having an intermediate step-up instrument that can actually take you a little bit further than, say, a year or two if you have a very promising student, that is something that is really big, kind of in our world. Being able to say this clarinet will take you as far as you want to go. And of course, there's other models for you to step up to if you get to that point. But, it all comes down to price point and what the quality is, and really the sound concept that people want when they're looking to step up. So I really love the fact that, everything you've mentioned, Stefan, about the stepping up, but not stepping outside of, going from a Prologue to a Présence to a Privilege, is having the same feel, not having a foreign kind of feel to a clarinet. I think that says a lot, for just the design and what people, I think, are looking for. Maybe they didn't even know that yet. But once they, are able to play the instruments and can feel that, I think that really, I like that concept that you guys have, honed in on. So that, just as a player, I just think that's really great. So
I'm glad you mentioned it's consistent, because when I think in the making of history of some clarinets, it's not every day that you have the opportunity to develop over the span of 5-6 years 3 models which really make sense in the family and are close and enough to each other.
yeah. So just to touch on, just for a quick second. So again, that was I think 2 years ago, was it that the evolution came out, or has it been 3 or?
About 2 years ago.
2 years.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about evolution? We understand that it's a lined clarinet. It's not actually part of kind of the buffet green line. It's not a composite that is the entire clarinet. It's actually a grenadilla instrument that's lined. Can you tell us a little bit about the lining? And, here at MMI, we also deal with double reed, so oboes, and there's been lined oboes for a long time. But can you tell us a little bit about kind of how that came about and really what that is?
Sure. Of course, in the history of clarinet, there's been many trials of fixing the issue that you can have with any wooden, not only instrument, but product, because wood is natural material and it can adapt to the different conditions, and it can, in some cases, it can crack. We used to have between 5 to 10% of crack according to the years, and we wanted to solve that. So we had some old prototypes from Henri Selmer where you had wooden clarinet with a metal, not inside, but on the cover. All the outside of the wood was metal. That was a trial. In the 1920s, metal clarinet came in, but because clarinetists, we are so, and conductors also, especially because there's been some trial in symphonic orchestra, conductors wouldn't want to see metal clarinet there. And then came some other solution like composite material all the way through the whole entire instrument. And we wanted to keep the quality of wood because we knew some musicians who go to a composite instrument and they miss the warmth, the quality of the wooden clarinet. So we first experienced sleeve inside the upper joint. When I say inside, we don't insert a sleeve. It's in the very first operation when we make the instrument. We will first make a bigger hole, okay, and then we will fill it with a special resin which mixes with the wood, and then we will finish the bore operations with the same tooling, same people, to make it playable with the specificities of the bore we want. So evolution is not a model, evolution is a technique. So you can have a privilege evolution, you can have a Présence evolution. You can't have a Prologue evolution. It's on the top range. We put this model, this technique. And when we did these first trials with the whole upper joint, with the sleeve, with the resin, we did blind tests with our main tester, Philippe Béraud, who is the principal of the Paris Orchestra and professor of the Paris Conservatoire. 3 regular privilege, 3 with the resin, and he could tell immediately that, yeah, the 3 with resin are these ones, and the sound was not so good, so we thought that wouldn't work. So we thought, hang on, because when a crack can happen on an instrument, it's usually 98% of the time on the top of the upper joint. So we went, let's see if we do this, the resin only on the top half of the upper joint. Right. So that's what we did. We did another blind test, again, 3 and 3. And from the 6 clarinets, we couldn't tell which one was which. So that was a good thing. And then we asked him to rank the instrument. And his favorite instrument came up to be the one with the evolution system. The second was a plain wood, and the third was evolution. The rest I don't remember, but that said enough for us to say that yes, we've reached the point that you have the same difference than the difference you can have in a batch of regular clarinets. And then the idea is that if you know that you are especially sensitive to this problem, then you can ask for an evolution clarinet. If you don't have this problem, if your best preferred choice is a wood clarinet, you can still have a wood clarinet. last year we did 20% of our B flat and A Pro clarinet production with the evolution system. This year we are making 40% because the feedbacks are really good. Then the market will decide, musicians will decide, will it be 60% next year? Will it be one day all evolution because it's great for everybody? We'll see. But because the market is very conservative, we take it one step at a time, and we are very cautious. But the solution is great.
Well, one question that we get too about this model is it heavier?
No, it's lighter, but it's because the resin has not exactly the same density as the wood. So it's a little bit lighter, but because it represents the resin is on 2 millimeters thickness, all inside the bore on this length. So the total weight of the resin against the rest of the instrument is 2%. So,
okay.
So those 2% are lighter than what the other 2% of wood would be. So it doesn't count. But for sure, it's not heavier at all. It's in the other direction.
So does it go all the way down to like the D ring or just below the A?
Yeah, it goes up to this point here, right below the A key here.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's just like some of the oboes that we experience. You know, when people talk about lined instruments, they think the entire instrument is lined all the way down. And we're like, no, it's only where the, that would be I think that would be really heavy, personally, if the whole instrument, and it really wouldn't sound the same.
Well, we tried the whole upper joint and
down?
acoustically, all the way down the upper joint, not the lower joint. The whole of the upper joint was the first trial. Acoustically, it was not satisfactory. That's why it's just half of the upper joint.
Excellent.
Right.
And we're gonna try. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll jump in here with a new kind of question about the factories where you and Scott and Stefan are. If someone is interested in going to either of your locations to pick out a clarinet, is that possible nowadays, you know, post with the pandemic and everything, or kind of how it was done before, but especially if they're able to now to go do that?
Yeah, so as many know, Conn Selmer is located in Elkhart, Indiana, right? The band capital of the world. And pre-COVID, of course, we were openly bringing people in, and we have an artist room. People could come and select their instruments, and we had lots and lots of visits regularly. That did completely stop with COVID for obvious reasons. And it was, we didn't have visitors for about a year. At this point, we're not fully open again to visitors, but we kind of are, and it's on a case-by-case basis. So if someone does want to come visit, it would be best probably to reach out to myself. So email scampbell, CAMPBELL @conselmer.com. And then we do have to go through a process on an individual basis to get individual permission for every single visitor. But so if it's urgent, they want to come and they're very serious, then we can absolutely make the accommodations. Hopefully things will start improving more and more, and we can start allowing visitors more openly as we had in the past. And like I said, people can come in and we can have the instruments ready for them. And of course, our technicians, it takes place at the factory. So our technicians are right there if they want to make any type of adjustments, you know, even undercutting and serious stuff. So we're all able to do that. Yeah.
That's nice. And how about in Paris? Are you guys welcoming people for selection?
Yeah, we under certain conditions. Yeah, and I'm not sure if anyone who will be watching us will happen to be in France or in Europe, but during lockdown, the first lockdown, strictly lockdown, of course, everything was closed. Then we were able to reopen with very strict sanitary rules. So we have less studios available because we have to quarantine some instruments between trials, and it's only by appointment. Mainly with professionals in those days, because now we are in kind of semi-lockdown, but you can, for professional purposes, you can go and have your instrument repaired and checked, and if you need to change instrument, you can. So usually, to do that, you would have to have a special mandate from your employer, such an orchestra or a university or conservatory, to come to us and book an appointment and select and try some instruments.
Now, is the actual factory, is that actually in Paris, or is it outside?
It's a little bit outside. It started in Paris, and then just after World War I, it moved. We always kept a location in Paris, and the showroom and studios and the head office is in central Paris. But the factory is located 35 miles west of the city, where we employ 500 people making clarinets, saxophones, and mouthpieces. And you can visit the factory. You can visit the factory.
Gotcha. So in the showroom there, though, do you have repair technicians there?
Yes, we have repair technicians. We have good equipment. We can do some customization to some extent, and have some instruments selected. And have some mini events presenting things from here. Yeah, we do.
And I'm assuming, just like with probably some of the other manufacturers, obviously knowing what models you want, so we would, probably would we contact if somebody wanted to go to Paris. I know that that's a big thing in the clarinet world too, right? To go to the factory or go to the showroom to actually get it, select a clarinet in that setting is something that's kind of a nostalgic thing that people want to do. Would they just reach out to you specifically and say, hey, I'm interested in these kind of models, and you would have a selection for them to choose from? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, you can select instrument. You can't buy from us in Paris. You can select your instrument, and then it goes to your local choice of the dealer and specialist, because it's important that after you've done your trip to the source, you come back home, and if you need some adjustment and setting, and for the warranty, you have to play and buy locally. So we can handle both, because then we have this exchange with Scott, and he gives us thumbs up for this musician to come and select. Then, because we ship at least once a month, sometimes twice a month to the US, then the instrument can join the dealer in the US who's been selected.
And that's important to note as well for when people come to visit us in Elkhart. When they pick out their instrument, we're a manufacturer, so we don't do direct to consumer sales or anything like that. We have a strong network of dealers that work very hard to take care of the consumers and the artists throughout the country. And so they'll come and they can choose it, and then they'll just purchase through their dealer of choice. And again, like Stefan said, it's great to have that relationship. So if anything occurs, the dealer's right there to help them out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what we do. So just for a couple fun questions, just to wrap things up here. So we get a lot of these kind of, I call them clarinet nerd questions, but people want to know, how do clarinets from Selmer arrive? Do they arrive by plane mostly? Or are they on ships? How do things arrive to the factories here?
That's a really good question, actually. And I with that question, I want to point out that one thing that we haven't talked about is one of the biggest things that people love about the Selmer Paris clarinets, and that's their consistency. They love, and we've had artists who join the rosters almost entirely because of that, because they love not only how well they play, but they have the confidence they can tell their student, go buy a Selmer Paris instrument, they can open it right out of the box and it plays great. And Selmer Paris does a great job over there. Obviously, with transportation, there's always things that occur, and we have an excellent team of real craftswomen here, specifically for the clarinets, and craftsmen. We brought on one new technician that does do a little bit with the Selmer Paris. clarinets, but it's mainly Karen Stefan and Jennifer Wood at the factory here who just do a remarkable job. And they have those instruments so well set up. So to answer your question, the instruments are air freighted from Selmer, Paris over to well, Chicago and then Elkhart. So they're air freighted over.
Nice. Well, you guys kind of touched up on the new, any new models. We touched on barrels. Is there anything else you want to share that's something exciting and new people should check out? Ooh.
The bass clarinet, right? Of course. Yeah.
Eye candy.
Yes, you want to check out the black line of clarinets, and I'm holding the privileged bass because you want to check the bass with our regular basses as well. But the story with the black finish is that we had once, well, we had him several times, Michael Lowenstern, maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And he was coming to select his new bass, and he was saying to me, Stefan, what I would really like, a bass which is all black, completely black, matte finish. And I said to him, Michael, that's what I want too. So I needed just someone to ask for it, and especially if you're asking for it, that's great. So we made this black first as a special for him, and because he has just several people who's watching him on his YouTube channel, then we received some special requests from different countries in Asia, in the US, for a black bass. So we did a few more specials, and then we had to integrate it in the range. So we do the bass, but we also do the privilege and Présence. You can order it instead of the silver finish, the black finish. And sometimes the funny thing is, a musician comes to us and say, after concert, some people come and comment and say, how do you play all those notes without keys on the instrument? Because some people could think it's a piece of wood, but no, it's keys. So that's something, again, a little bit crazy. Amazingly, some people love it or hate it, and I don't think there's a middle. I think you love it or you just don't like it.
You just hate
I
it.
love it.
Yeah, what's kind of been the feedback for like sound on?
Same sound. They mentioned that, well, first the comfort under the fingers is a little bit different because the finish is black chrome matte finish, so you can move your fingers easily. But it's not as cold as the silver plating. So some musicians like this feel of having an instrument with the keys which are not cold. So that's one thing. And the padding is a little bit different. The pads are black as well to go all the way. So the instrument is a little bit lighter than the regular either privilege or black Présence.
Are they dyed black leather?
No, we have black Gore-Tex and the black leather for some Valentino for the lower notes.
Gotcha. Well, that's pretty cool. Excellent. Was there anything else? I know that Julian, you mentioned already the new Leblanc 2 coming out in May. You briefly touched on something about was there any kind of development in a synthetic or lined or anything like that for that model, or no?
There are lots of things that we are looking at all the time. I have to remain tight-lipped on those development things at the moment, but certainly our plan as the future goes on is to increase the range on the Leblanc side. So that's certainly something that we're working on. And with the new instrument, the new Serenade 2, and with the vast amount of the vast amount of great instruments that we have made on the student side. We have some fantastic names and some really well-known instruments there. It's a really great brand with a great portfolio, and we hope to build that and rebuild it in some ways, to be completely honest. So that's something that we're working on very hard at the moment, and we'll continue to do so. And yeah, like I say, it's great to have such a good team to work with. So yeah, keep your eyes out within the next couple of years. There's a lot happening.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that, and we look forward to, the pandemic finally coming to an end and hopefully having events again in our awesome showroom that we have here. We love to do events like that. So having you guys, if you're interested at some point coming in, I think that'd be really great to showcase all these models.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that's our last question. So we thank you so much for your time and putting all this together. I think this is going to be really wonderful. We really hope that people check out, we have 2 videos that give kind of behind the scenes in the factory tour. That's going to be part of this series as well. So thank you guys for doing that and showing the little tidbits that people are really interested in. But thank you again so much for your time. I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate Midwest Music.
Thank you for inviting us.
Inviting.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. Thank you.
So much.